Hello, so today I want to talk about, um, I guess the recent attacks in Israel and just some general thoughts I have on this. Um, my thoughts are a little bit disparate on it. I've been obviously paying attention to. I think most people who are politically interested have been paying attention to the issues in Israel and Palestine. Generally, and obviously the recent attacks by Hamas, the terror attacks, have been really shocking, incredibly brutal. And I just want to collect a couple of my thoughts on it, I guess. I wrote down a bunch of notes about it. And yeah, I guess I want to just talk through them. And you can come along for the ride as I unfold some thoughts about it. I mean, I think, again, I said this already. I might not be doing much Minecrafting today, obviously, because it's a very heavy topic. I don't really have the capacity to do both. I'm not very good at that multitasking. But yeah, so obviously what we heard from the attacks is really horrific and sickening, actively targeting civilians. But what I'm interested in is the reaction, partly like online, but not just online, also in the political in the political sphere of it, because I do think it's been pretty bad, most of it, like incredibly brutal and violent in a way, and very one-sided. Like it goes to like 100% this or that, and I think that's pretty bad, because there's obviously a lot of nuance to the situation. There's no nuance, I think, to this attack, which has to be condemned. This is sickening, and that's one of the things that I've noticed among some people, which I count myself somewhat as a left-leaning person. I mean, I usually say I'm a social democrat, like a traditional one, but among especially the online left, but also the offline left, there's been people who even celebrate, I would almost say, these attacks, or at least they're kind of in a narrative where they see it as a freedom struggle, or like one of the keywords that's being used is decolonization, things like that. And I don't think this is valid at all. Like the targeting of like ultimately, I would say, innocent people, completely innocent people. Well, I mean, I think that's to basically lay it out for people who aren't as online, and I'm already not that online anymore. I think the argument that some leftists make is because it is an occupation of Gaza, and well, they would use the term settler colonialism as well. There are no civilians in Israel, and I just don't think this is in any way reasonable. It's a completely messed up view of the situation. So that has been quite upsetting to me. But then, because I am more, I would say, left-leaning, and I do think it's also very upsetting how the reaction has been towards Palestinians generally, because I do think now it's kind of getting lumped in completely with Hamas, which is not accurate. And even if one were to support a lot of Palestinians were to support Hamas in a general sense, it wouldn't make it acceptable to, well, basically like call for the eradication of these people, which is what I wouldn't say the other side, but a lot of people seem to be doing online as well. So I just think that we just have like a very unempathetic, very angry, very factional discourse around this topic. And that's a very worrying trend just online generally. People, I think, are much more willing to excuse like pretty horrific things. I was thinking about this recently too in Germany, where there was the scandal where one of the Bavarian politicians in his high school years probably published a anti-Semitic pamphlet, and like the discussion about it was like very abstract. I think like just like, oh well, anti-Semitism is bad, which it is, right? But like there's kind of there's this aspect where the atrocities of the Holocaust, I think, are like wearing off in the general consciousness, and they are not really felt or understand anymore. And they're more like an abstract point of argument now in conversations. So yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, is that the discourse just really gone bad, and I think like part of it is obviously that we've so I haven't really looked at videos and photos of these attacks because I am actively avoiding them, but obviously when you're online you can now easily see them, or if you like, especially if you're on X, you will probably come across them depending on what circles you run in, I guess. But that kind of imagery will obviously attach to people's emotions, and very understandably make people angry and sad and frustrated. And then I think a relatively natural reaction is to want vengeance, which I think we've seen with a lot of people, where they're like, well, now we have to flatten Gaza, like just basically kill them all kind of rhetoric. And a lot of my political views are based on power imbalances. And even though this attack, obviously it targeted Israelis, civilians, and obviously also like children, babies even, the power overall in the conflict is on Israel's side. And so like it's very worrying to me when the rhetoric now becomes basically almost genocidal from a state actor that has immense resources, that is very much supported also by my government. I mean, there was talk in the EU of stopping aid to Gaza, so people wouldn't be able to eat. And I mean, I guess like this is basically what's been happening now with the siege anyways. The power is completely gone, as far as I understand from the news. Food doesn't really come in anymore. I think I've read like 9 UN workers have been killed by air raids in Gaza. The death toll is probably massive. And yeah, so I just like, I guess that was my initial reaction when when hearing about this either. Like it's such an awful tragedy, and nothing possibly. Oh God! All right, well, nothing possibly good can come from like I don't think Hamas wants necessarily anything good to come from it, but like people sometimes will pretend that like it is in the interest of people in I need to get that back in the interest of people in Palestine to have these things. That it clearly isn't. It's like it's going to be incredibly bad. It's going to be like worse than ever. When talking about Israel and Palestine, right? Like there were like two vague, hopeful solutions. I would say. I need to get some stuff. Which I mean is the one is the two-state solution that people would talk about, and the other is something that Omri Boehm and other people would talk about, which is more of a one-state solution with equal rights for all Palestinians. Both of these obviously come with like a lot of baggage and problems, but they were still like kind of like the hope you could hold out for. And I feel like at this point, it's just, I mean, it's obviously incredibly unlikely that any sort of solution that will be good both for the Israeli people and the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people on the whole suffering more in the general conflict, though, like having no agency, being completely in starving, being in the control of Israel, really. It just, there's no way it's gonna lead to anything positive for anyone. And I think, like, again, like I said, also not for Israelis, right? Like, obviously the thing is, like, in Israel there reigns fear, and like very understandably, obviously, I'd be also terrified if I lived there, especially nearer to the borders. But you still gotta kind of like realize what the reality of it is too, right? And who's going to suffer the most. Obviously, like the victims of this terror attack suffered significantly, and their loved ones as well. But this kind of stuff also happens all the time in Gaza. And so if we're obviously it's a little bit different, it's not the same. But if we're talking about things like we're going to support like an all-out war of Israel against Gaza, these atrocities or similar atrocities will happen. There will be war crimes. I mean, there have already been war crimes committed, and yeah, it's just such a terrible situation. I don't know. I made some notes. I should look through them. It's just like this. These are some of the thoughts I come through. I guess what I hope is apparent is that I'm not against like Israelis or anything like that. I feel like you get easily that's I guess a bit of my worry that you get that I get pigeonholed into that because of a very strong stance of like Palestinians need like a better situation, and they are really most negatively affected by the situation. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, look, it's not like anyone watches this. So I'm just kind of stumbling through my thoughts, anyways, and yeah. Let me just quickly read what I wrote down. Maybe a little more. Like I understand, like, obviously this kind of fear, and also the historical nature, right, of Israel as being founded after the Holocaust, and being founded in like quite bloody wars, and like there too, like atrocities, to be honest. Like a lot of the building of Israel as a state is based on atrocities committed by, I mean, obviously a lot of different sides, but also by the state, or the future state of Israel. And so this kind of fear for their existence is like, it's understandable, I think, right? After the Holocaust specifically, and being surrounded by pretty vicious enemies. But I mean, like, it's not really the civilians in Gaza, or in, also not in the West Bank or whatever, that are suffering from this, that are responsible for it, right? Yeah. And anyways, I mean, I think it's a bit all over the place. I just feel like the thing is, I don't think anyone should have to say anything. Like, I think sometimes it can be good to just, like, you don't have to say anything on everything. Like, there's like kind of these purity checks all the time. But I felt like I wanted to say something, because it's just something I noticed in the discourse, or like the discussion of it, that is so violent and brutal and dehumanizing on all sides, really. And it kind of, I wouldn't say it shocked me, but it's makes me very worried about not just the situation in Israel, but just like the political situation in the broader West, I guess, where there's such disagreements, and like no way to talk with each other, really. Anything else? I mean, there's a couple of things. I'm completely full. Yeah, I mean, there's an aspect of this potentially also like leading to more anti-Semitism in the West, which would be really awful. It has already increased. I think I talked about this in the past. Like, attacks on Jews living in Western countries have increased over the last years, and a lot of it is obviously right-wing based on very more straightforward anti-Semitism, but some of it is also based on anti-Israel sentiments, which again, I think anti-Israel sentiments are acceptable. There's like two things that are often said in the discussion around Israel, which are, in this case, now with the war, people will say Israel has the right to defend itself, and like that is true at the face of it. But what does this mean, right? Like, Israel has the right to defend itself, but it doesn't have the right to commit war crimes in Gaza, right? Like that's not the same thing. It has the right to defend itself. Yes, but it doesn't. It's not allowed to do everything. It can't use one of its atom bombs on Gaza, right? Like obviously they wouldn't do that. It's much too close, and it's like that would be an atrocity. But you can't use the right to defend yourself based on this attack, which is like surprisingly coordinated, but not a threat to the Israeli state. You can't use that to justify everything, right? Obviously, that's not. You can't do that. And then the other thing that's being said, and this is kind of a very similar thing, is which like Israel has a right to exist, and that's like also like kind of a shut up argument that's being made in Europe, because it's like it's kind of like a weird thing though. Like, what does it mean for Israel to have a right to exist? Like the Israelis living in Israel and Palestine have a right to exist. Yeah, like nothing should happen to them. Does an autocratic state that's getting more and more autocratic have a right to exist? And in the sense that like should it perhaps be instead like what they call a liberal democracy? Then no, I mean like maybe the autocratic state should not exist, right? Like there should be like a Supreme Court that has sensible powers. There should be, like there should be equal rights for everyone under the law, regardless of religion. There should be, no, they're kind of fighting words, but it's kind of true too. Like there shouldn't be apartheid under the controlled territories. There shouldn't, like, right? Like so Israel has a right to exist, but it doesn't have a right to do a lot of the things it does, right? Like it's kind of just a weird argument in discourse that I don't know. It just bothers me, and yeah. Anyway, so I mean the consequence of this just seem to be awful. Like none of the potential solutions are going to be realistic for a long time. Who knows what's going to happen now? Maybe like literal ethnic cleansing could be on the table. Like who knows if they can, I don't know. But like could they get rid of the people in Gaza somehow? I don't know. I mean, it's just very worrying. Like there's definitely a lot of rhetoric that just suggests that there will be really awful things happening. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we could also make like a discussion about the IDC and like conscription and things like that. I'm against conscription. I talked about this, I think, with the Ukraine thing, or if not, I should talk about that. I just don't like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's depressing, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about it. If you have some thoughts, just let me know. If you disagree with some stuff I said, or if you think I should have said some things better, I would definitely agree with that. Either way, I'll see you in the next episode, and I mean, well, yeah, bye.